COVID-19 pandemic. This will be on YouTube if you wish to review or take another look at or hear what this meeting was all about if you missed anything. Just a couple of procedural items. The presenters will present and we'll turn back to the committee for questions and comments, and then to the audience, the public. If there are any, we'll give them an opportunity to do that also. We'll come back to the committee for a wrap up and see if there's any action items we need to take for that particular presentation. Please remember that if you wish to ask a question, click onto the participants at the bottom of your screen, if you're using a screen, and just click onto the yellow hand signal. You'll see the, not the yellow, the blue hand signal. The hand will go up and you'll be called upon to ask your question. If you're phoning in, *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. Just want to recognize Carl Wilson from Speaker Johnson's office, who's here with us tonight. And I will now turn this over to Kit to lead us in the first two presentations.
Thanks, Al. Getting a little bit of an echo. There we go. We'll keep this short and sweet. Welcome, everybody. As Alan said, we do have a good number of things on the agenda, so we want to obviously hear from all of you, but also to keep this moving at a steady pace so that we can be respectful of everyone's time. First up is going to be our friends at Street Labs, who are here to present about their homework hub on West 16th Street. Jesse, are you able to move them over so that they can rock and roll?
I believe Leslie has moved over.
Yep.
All righty. Leslie, is there anybody else that I need to move over?
Nope, just me.
All righty.
Welcome, Leslie. Your show.
I guess I don't know how to start my video. I can start my video. There we go.
Now
Okay,
let me, Leslie, I haven't given you that ability to.
Oh,
so
sorry. Now I got it.
All right.
I do have my video going now. I can share some photos too, if that's possible, but I can just briefly introduce it and then I'll take questions. So I'm Leslie Duvall. Thank you for inviting me here. Nice to be here. I run a nonprofit that I started with my husband about 10 years ago called Street Lab. And we work all over the city. And what we do is we create and share programs for public space. And we work in parks, we work in plazas, we work closely with the DOT, with the Parks Department, and with hundreds of community groups that are all trying to improve their neighborhoods through activating public space. So everywhere we go is by request at this point. And so I've worked in Chelsea before in a number of locations, mainly Chelsea Park, a couple of the parks in Chelsea in years past. What we usually do is we have these designed environments and we provide programs. When COVID hit, we had to cancel a lot of our season that we had planned and we redesigned our programs. So a lot of our programs usually involve a lot of sharing. We do reading rooms and art stations and exploring stations. We redesigned our programs and came up with a whole bunch of new ideas that we got started on right away when restrictions were lifted, on open streets across the city, working at play streets, doing obstacle courses, different things, chalk drawing. Anyway, this fall, I was talking to a teacher about collaborating, a teacher at the Urban Assembly School for Science, Math, Girls. It's in downtown Brooklyn. And we were working on, what could we do together? She was telling me about the challenges as soon as schools opened up again of students remaining connected. And of course, you've heard these stories of families struggling to, maybe you have this experience of trying to help kids with homework. So we came up with this idea of a homework hub outside. And this is what Street Lab does. We can create an environment almost anywhere, a pop-up environment for programming. It's always staffed. So we tested this in Flatbush at a plaza all through October, once a week. We did it on Saturdays. And we had kids come to get help with their homework. One girl in a 6th grade came every Saturday. We helped her with her math. We had volunteers and we had my staff. Parents walking by were telling us it was sorely needed. A lot of kids told us they don't want to do homework on a Saturday, so Saturday's a bad idea, but that was the day we had available. Anyway, the idea, seemed to capture a lot of imagination, and people liked it. And so Chelsea Market reached out to me, and I've worked with Chelsea Market before. They have paid me to come and do programs in the lower level of Chelsea Market last year over the winter. We did some of our pop-up programs there. So a lot of our programs are philanthropically funded. We get funded by the city, the Department of Cultural Affairs, you know, different agencies, and then also foundations. But in that case, Chelsea Market paid us to do that work. In this case, they are giving us some of their community engagement grant. They're funding us to create a homework hub on West 16th Street. So they reached out to me and they said, we've got this, our idea for the winter for these homework hubs we were looking for places wherever there might be heat lamps. So, you know, the one we did in Flatbush closed down because the weather was beautiful in October, but now it's going to be colder. Last week was freezing. Today, of course, you know, we forget all about that, but there's no heat there. So we said, what if we could continue this when people need it most? We still need to be outside. Students need to come together face to face. They need to get out of their apartments and away from the screens. Could we do this where there are restaurant setups with heat lamps? That was the idea. So we looked at we looked in Chinatown, reached out to the bid there that I've worked with before, looked at a couple of restaurants, and then Chelsea Market reached out. So what we're doing is now every Tuesday from 2 to 5 on West 16th Street, right out next to Chelsea Market, using their outdoor dining setup, we're setting up a homework hub, a staffed environment where we are keeping the tables separate. We've got masks, we've got hand sanitizers, we've got staff to make sure it doesn't get too crowded. And we're inviting the community to use it. You know, Chelsea Market said, maybe we should wait a few weeks and do more outreach. And I said, let's get started right away because of the weather and the COVID situation. You just don't know what's going to come. So we got started, but I did do outreach last week. Last week was our first day. Last Tuesday, tomorrow we'll be back. And I connected with Miguel Acevedo, who's the Tenant Association president at Fulton Houses. I also reached out to the Tenant Association at Chelsea Elliott Houses and to all the PTA groups in the schools in the vicinity. So I sent an email out to everybody about this. The group that's going to use it the most, I think, is going to be the Fulton House residents, because we've hooked up with a wonderful woman who's been doing this all on her own, an after-school program with 15 kids that had to shut down in March because they were using the Tenant Association office. They haven't met since March. She's desperate to meet up with her students again and continue her after-school program. So she's going to bring her kids over. She did last week. She got a few of them over, and she'll bring her kids and use the space and just basically, you know, it's there as a social environment, but also, of course, homework help. We'll have volunteers there. We had someone stop by on our first day who was, you know, studying for her SAT, and she just put her headphones in and was like, great, I'm going to sit out here and I'm going to do my work. And she did her studying. And, you know, we have kids who are coming and they're just, some of them are not doing homework. They're just hanging out, but that's fine too. So now I'll take questions.
Folks, if y'all have questions on the committee, like Alan said, please use the raise hand feature. Just click on participants, I believe it is, and then you'll see it. And folks who are joining us from the public, once we hear from folks on the committee, we'll shift over to y'all. Any questions for Leslie? Sarah, I saw you first, and then we'll go to Judith.
Hi, Leslie. Thanks so much for letting us know about this homework help. I think it's definitely an awesome thing. What is the age range for the homework help, or is it kind of just K through 12 and then people are there as far as anyone who can specialize or help with certain subjects within those age ranges?
Exactly. I mean, we'll see what the needs are. And if we're challenged, I'll figure out some way to deal with it. Some of my staff has been a little nervous about helping people with their math. So we've gotten some high school students who are recently graduated. So actually the New York City, the NYC Museum School, which is right across, you know, right nearby, they're sending a bunch of their high school students to volunteer. And so the other group that this is impacting is high school students who can no longer do community service. They haven't been able to find community service opportunities as easily. So I'm hearing from a lot of teenagers too, who are really eager to get those credits and also get out of their houses and engage. So we did our homework hub in Chinatown just today, our second one, and we had a bunch of teenagers come out, and I'm hearing that they're pretty lonely and they want to engage. So, so I think it's going to be great for the teenagers too. So I did reach out to a couple of, say to the high schools, not only can you come and do your work here and meet up with your friends to do your work together in study groups or whatever, you can help the younger kids with their homework, especially if you're closer to the curriculum than people my age. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
All right, we'll go Judith and then Josephine.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. You answered my question because that's just what I was looking to find out. Thank you for all the information, but I was wondering, I work at the high school, and I was
Great.
wondering if the students could be using it as a community service. And I was just not clear exactly what time. You said Tuesdays is from 2 to 5, was that correct?
That's right. Tuesdays, 2 to 5. Yep. And we're going to keep it going into December. And that's all I have funding for the moment, but we'll see if it's, if it's working. I want to do it in January and February if we're not freezing. And Chelsea Market's working on the heat lamps. So they'll have those soon.
And just to clarify, you said the people that are teaching or helping, the homework helpers are volunteers?
They are volunteers. Yeah, I have staff there. I wouldn't say they're trained to be tutors. My staff is experts in pop-up and engaging the public and making a safe environment. That's why I'm reaching out to volunteers. But I have hired, a kid who just graduated from Stuyvesant to work for us. And so, I'm getting some ringers in there, but, and he's done tutoring. But yeah, I mean, it's really designed to be more of the kind of help, I guess, as an alternative to parents trying to help their students. That's kind of the vision. But I'm I'm open to any ideas, and certainly, any more, we can bump up the level of the volunteers if you have any suggestions for me. So that'd be great.
I thank you very much. Can you put your email in the chat? So
I will do that.
Right now, I'm just very pleased to hear about this because I didn't know anything about it. Sounds like a great opportunity.
We just started, so great. Okay.
Thank you.
Josephine, all you.
Yes, thank you so much, Leslie, for this presentation. This is just a fantastic idea, and I really hope that families take advantage of this. I'm wondering, how many students are you looking to accommodate at each session every Tuesday, or can you accommodate? And also what your response has been from contacting local PTAs.
Yeah, I've only gotten about 2 responses, the museum school, and then there was another school that emailed me back and said, this is a great idea. Can kids volunteer? So I haven't gotten many responses to those emails. I'm hoping the word is going around. We did also put something, I think there was something in the newsletter for the meatpacking district that went out. I contacted Corey Johnson's office as well. Anyway, what was the other question? The other question was, how many can we accommodate? Right. I would be happy if we had a crush of people and we had to say, come back later. Or, I mean, the good thing about the setup is the tables are we have a long stretch that we can fill and use, and the tables are all spaced 6 feet apart. Chelsea Market has set it up that way. And those tables are underutilized from 2 to 5 on Tuesdays along West 16th Street. I think there's more people eating on 15th Street. So the tables are available. So we could certainly have more people. We're going to make sure that it doesn't get too crowded. I mean, I think there's still in Chelsea, there's the 50-person limit. In other parts of the city, I'm having to contend with 25. In one case, Flatbush, for a little while, it was 10 people. So my staff will be in charge of making sure we don't get too crowded. But I'm going to say that I just welcome everybody. We can manage the crowds. That would be fantastic if we had to do that. So at a time, again, the tables, there's probably 10 or so that each seat 2 people that are pretty well spaced out. Yeah.
And do you have like a flyer with all this information? Is there a website? Okay,
yeah.
because they're doing outreach. Yeah, absolutely. That would be very helpful. I think that middle schools for certain, there are a couple in that area that I know one in particular who could certainly use some of this help. Elementary, it might be a little bit hard because parents, the kids
they have to get them there. Yeah,
the kids, right. But certainly with the middle school, we can try to push that. And I just want to at least make sure that they know that you're there. So whatever link you can give us, I'll certainly pass that along.
That's great. The link I just put in the chat, if you scroll down, there's all kinds of assets there for printing out flyers or doing social media posts and blurbs about it.
Okay.
You can also see where our Chinatown hub is. Yeah, and also, what was I going to say? Yeah, that would be great. I think, yeah. The other thing I wanted to say was also if people know of after-school programs that have been canceled, I welcome partnering with any and all groups. So again, once we've created the space, let's use it. Any groups that want to use it, please come and use it. Bring your students. So I'm open to everybody using it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Jessica has her hand raised. We have one question in the chat, and I'm not seeing any questions from the public. So Jessica, we'll take you. We'll take the question in the chat, and then we may be moving on to our next item.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Leslie. This is really great. And it's very inspiring to see someone just taking action in the way that you are. And I'm just curious, there are a lot of people on this call who are connected to students and educators, and I'm not one of them, but I am curious, like and maybe it's funding. You alluded to only being able to continue this as it stands right now through December, but like, what is it you need to ensure that this is successful? Like, what has you concerned right now?
I think just participation. I would really love students to use it. And so, I mean, we just started last week and we had a couple of kids use it and, that was great. So, I mean, when you go through, when you do it, you just want people to use it. So I think, yeah, like spreading the word is great. And particularly to, getting a few people here and there is fine. But also if there are groups that you know of who are looking for other ways other ways to continue meeting, in a safer way that's outdoors, that would be great. That would be a huge help. And yeah, and that's if that works and we have lots of kids using it, then I have an easy case to make to funders to continue it, right? And we know it works. So then it would all be clear. So that would be helpful.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. The question in the chat is, will the heat lamps be electric or log?
Log, or there's propane. I don't know about log ones. That's cool. I mean, I don't know.
LPG. I wrote LPG. Maybe it came out typo. I apologize. But it's,
okay.
Which is propane, which is very dangerous.
Okay. Well, this is a whole issue across the city, and I don't know anything about heat lamps and what the proper ones are. Chelsea, I'm going to leave that to Chelsea Market to put it on their liability and their concern over their customers. So they will be, they're going to be providing some heat lamps. They're working on that now and researching it. I'm not sure what they're deciding. I know in Chinatown, they've got a propane heat lamp. So they have that big, and I know the city has given.
Yeah, there's regulations are screwy with that, but
yeah.
Just so you're aware, you're putting your students at danger if something goes wrong. Because those are gas. So,
okay.
I would try to steer towards electrical or another method.
Okay, I'll pass that on. I'll pass that on. Thank you.
All right. Friendly reminder for folks in the public, if you wanted to ask a question, participants at the bottom of your screen, most likely, and then raise hand is how you indicate that. I'm still not seeing any. So Leslie, I think you might be out of the hot seat, but just want to echo what other folks in the committee have said. This is a really inspiring program, and hopefully we can help spread the good words that more students and their families take advantage of it. Jesse, if we haven't already, can we blast this out through our email?
Yes, I just sent the link that Leslie sent us with the flyer for the West 16th Street location to our social media person. So she'll probably blast that out tomorrow.
That's great.
Now, if there's any other connections that you think that we can be helpful with, please let us know.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leslie. Appreciate you coming and sharing tonight, and good luck. I hope that you are seeing a surge in demand very soon. I believe next up is our friends from Avenues. Jesse, would you move them over to be able to speak to everybody, please?
Morgan, you're with us?
Hello. Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, Morgan. Remind me who else am I bringing over from Avenues?
CEO Lupin, our head of school, Evan Glazer, and our director of admissions, David Buchwald.
Great.
Good to see everybody.
Hi, everyone. My name is Evan Glazer. I'm head of school for Avenues, New York. It's so wonderful to join you today. We are in our 9th year in the CB4 community in West Chelsea. Certainly, we strive to be good citizens, great neighbors, and visionary leaders in education to prepare our students for a bright future. I am a resident in the local area and am really proud to be part of the community and to see the engagement of our school with the community in different ways. With me today is Morgan Jones, our Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships, and also Dave Buchwald. He's our Director of Admissions and Enrollment. And in our presentation today, Dave will start off by sharing a little bit about financial aid and admission and participation of residents of CB4 at Avenues. And then Morgan will follow with talking about some of the engagement that has been going on over the last year. Hopefully you've received a report that describes a little bit of what we have been doing. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, certainly check it out after our meeting today. Dave?
Thanks, Evan. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. So my name's Dave Buchwald, and I'm in my 3rd year in this role at Avenue. So I was with you in person for our last 2 fall board meetings, and good to see many familiar faces. I know you got the report in advance. You probably have a sense of some of our statistics of our student body. I thought I would share just a few highlights around admissions and enrollment. Our CB4 residents comprise about 22% of our total student body, and that is consistent with prior years. Our CB4 students have been, on average, about 27% more likely to be admitted to Avenues than those who reside elsewhere, which is usually in the 5 boroughs of the city. Our financial aid program, which I know you know from past conversation, is exclusively need-based, and we aim to meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need for families at time of admission, and that includes CB4 residents. And how we do that is through grant, which is need-based scholarship, meaning families do not need to pay it back when a child leaves or graduates from Avenues. We had just this past year 21 new aid awards that were made to CB4 residents. And if you look at students who graduated from the community board, families who maybe moved out of CB4, there's a little bit more movement than normal given COVID and or leaving Avenues. We ended up with a net increase of 10 more students who are on financial aid from our community board. Our investment in aid, as you can see, has steadily increased over the years. We awarded a little bit under $12.5 million in need-based financial aid in total, of which just over $2.5 million or $2.5 million plus was offered to CB4 residents. I can certainly, I maybe might turn it over to Morgan for some highlights of our community engagement. And then of course, if you have questions.
Sure. Thanks a lot, David. And again, great to see the entire committee here. Alan, great seeing you again as well, too. And hi, Kit. Congratulations to the co-chair level here as well, too. And last time I saw everyone was in June as well. And thank you so much for the commendation from the full board as well. So yeah, as Dr. Glazer mentioned, I'm Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships at Avenues. I'm just over a year into my role, and it's been really a wonderful experience working with our school community here overall and partnering with Community Board 4. Yeah, as you can see from our report, the 2019-2020 school year has been one like no other for sure, especially with regards to the pandemic and so on. So while in the fall, it was really great to connect with the Holy Apostle Soup Kitchen and have our students perform for patrons there, as well as at the Hudson Guild on a monthly basis, connecting regularly with our Elliott Chelsea Houses neighbors, our Fulton Houses neighbors. Definitely when the pandemic hit during the spring, and that was during our spring break, a lot of our community engagement strategy changed. And also we had many members of our community just wanting to mobilize and think of ways to help. And if it weren't for you guys in Community Board 4, for you all at Community Board 4, my goodness, I mean, it's been a really great partnership to work with you all here. And a lot of those opportunities are listed in terms of what we've been able to do with you all. But even since June, since we were last here, we've still been doing some really interesting work as well. We've held 2 socially distant book fairs with the Elliott Chelsea Houses. One of them was as recently as this Halloween. So it was really great to work on that. Currently, right now, we are having our 7th annual food drive with the St. Clement's Food Pantry, which is also within MCB4. And of course, I mentioned last year, we have a regular community design incubator that we work with for our seniors, where they come up with innovative ideas and ways to partner with our various community members through their curriculum, and lots of partnerships with Holy Apostle Soup Kitchen, Penn South, and other neighbors as well. And hopefully that will help build into that one day that we can all connect directly in person. But we'll continue to do what we're doing as far as engagement virtually overall. And I just kind of want to wrap this up by saying 2 quick things. One is an ask to you all, and the other is another final thanks as well. Firstly, the ask is actually, we have a 7th grade class that's working on a portrait project. And usually this portrait project is you do a portrait and you get a story from various family members or people that you know in your immediate circle. But this year, this portrait project really wants to focus on community. And so we've already engaged with the Fulton Houses and a couple of you here as well. But I'd love to get more members of the committee to join in. It's a really cool art and English project with our 7th graders. And I think it'll be a really great way to create an interesting relationship, an even deeper relationship with you all on the committee. And then lastly, really want to thank you all, of course, on the committee and the full board, but of course, Jesse Bodine, who's just been a really incredible partner on everything that we do, super reliable, always great in following up. And a lot of the opportunities was because of him, and through the work of this committee, it's just been so instrumental to helping us make sure that we are able to do really great, dynamic, mutually beneficial work during these really tough times and get our students, our families, our faculty and staff all together fully involved. So those are my points. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. Thank you.
Questions for the team from Avenues? If nobody has one, I do have one. Okay, looks like I might be the only one. Bear with me on this and correct any of the details that I'm getting wrong, but I believe that Avenues has created a program where a family or a group of families can get an Avenues education in a pod setting. I was curious if you know, because I skimmed the report, but I didn't see it. Are CB4 families participating in that to any extent? And how does need-based financial aid play into that offering that your school has started to make available to students and families?
Sure, I could maybe just jump in. We offered a variety of solutions, enrollment solutions for families who we currently serve at Avenues New York, and that included CB4 residents. One of the big ones was for many families, if they had temporarily relocated, our Avenues online campus provided, for some, a different price point, but also provided the convenience of a campus that was designed to be online versus, say, our Avenues New York campus that switched into distance learning. two extensions of that included the opportunity where some families could, as you suggested, perhaps form a pod. They're pretty small pods to perhaps have a teacher come to a family's home or apartment. We also created and had already had in the works a micro campus of sorts, so sort of intentionally small to be about 60 or 70 students out on Eastern Long Island. There are CB4 residents who opted in to participate in all of those programs. And there are CB4 residents who've received financial aid participating in the programs. One other, just a sort of asterisk there is we are open this fall with a lot of safety protocol in place, but we are open 5 days a week in person on campus. For students who are in 6th to 12th grade, they have the option to flex, meaning they could possibly be in sort of a hybrid type environment. So we offered a lot of solutions to families. And I do think CB4 residents were not different than residents of other community boards in the city and taking advantage of those opportunities. I don't know if I missed anything.
Dave, just to add one other point. So on campus, as David mentioned, we're going 5 days a week, and we're now 2 months, which is really fantastic. The campus actually operates like 100 different pods. So imagine your one-room schoolhouse. And Morgan's actually leading one of the pods. We have, essentially no movement within the school except in that core classroom. So the kids essentially have their own family at school as their pod mates. And then within that, that's kind of how they spend their day. So we're running school very differently, and the intention is to be incredibly safe. And we're really proud and pleased that our community has been able to remain healthy.
Looks like we have a question from Judith.
Hi, thank you very much for this information. And my question is about the portraits within the community, because I also work at the High School of Fashion, and one of my colleagues is also doing a portrait within the community. So I thought maybe we could work together. So if you could put whoever's in charge of it in the chat, and we can probably network and figure out, because I'll just send you her name or send her your names, but it sounds like she's getting a lot of people within the block associations and reaching out to people. So I thought maybe it'd be a good, I don't know, you plan on showing them somewhere, or what are the details of that?
Yeah, we definitely want to show them somewhere. I have to speak with, so it's the art teachers who are running this. It's 2 art teachers that are running the program. So I'll have to find out where exactly they want to show them. I'd love to show them community-wide in some way, shape, or form, given the community nature of this as well too, and open to feedback on best ways to do that. But yes, please reach out to me. I'm happy to connect all of that together. I'm morgan.jones@avenues.org is my email address. I'm putting that in the chat. But of course, a few folks here already know who I am, so I'm happy. Please, thank you, Judith. Absolutely.
That sounds good. I think my colleague who's working on it is doing this for her administrative license. So I'm so surprised that you're doing the same thing, and it's really a nice community outreach. Thank you for.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, guys. Hi, Morgan. Hi, David. Hi, Evan. Could you guys, a couple things just for edification for the committee members. I'm going to just put in the chat a couple links to the previous letters, which I think, not right now, obviously, but whenever you guys committee members want to take a time to look at the relationship that the board has had with Avenues, I think it's helpful to understand where some of this all comes from. And but I think if you guys could also maybe go in a little more detail on your relationship maybe with Fulton Houses and the work you guys have done there, I think that would be beneficial for the committee to understand.
Oh, okay, great. I can start there. Yeah, there's lots of different pieces and ways that we work with the Fulton Houses overall. So I'll speak. Firstly, I meet regularly with Miguel Acevedo, probably on a bi-weekly basis at least, sometimes more, actually, and we'll talk about all sorts of general regular issues and check-ins. We'll invite him often to many of our classes. So he's actually visited the Community Design Incubator class to speak about the Fulton Houses. I previously hosted a class about government and community relations 101 to some middle schoolers during the summer. And he was a guest speaker for our first session. We also held an art illusion project where a group of our students, along with a group of youth from the Fulton houses and our school, developed murals. And one of those murals is hanging on 18th Street, right above the houses there. And we're looking to try and place the other half of the mural on our building at some point soon, once we're able to do that. We also visit their, anytime that they have some sort of regular tenants association meeting, we attend that. That's also an opportunity for us to share not only general information on what our community engagement work we're doing with our students, what's happening as far as that's concerned, but also an opportunity to share that we also have admissions and you can apply for avenues, and definitely do it. And I'm more than happy to connect you with David's staff here directly to help walk all members of the Fulton houses through the application process, as well as if there's any need for this, but financial aid related process as well too. A lot of the same information that David shared as well too. We'll attend any events that Fulton houses host. I think one of the last events I remember attending, and actually Dr. Glazer was there with me. It was there's holiday event. There was a Christmas event that we had participated. Whenever there's National Night Out, we'll participate and show up for that. Try and get as many of our students to engage directly with Mr. Acevedo and the rest of the tenant association. Some of the students already know Mr. Acevedo by name very directly. And so there's just all of these various opportunities and ways that we'll partner with the Fulton houses. And so even though they're a little bit further away from our school per se, we're much closer to the Elliott Chelsea houses that's directly across the street. We're all within CB4, we're all neighbors, we're all within Chelsea here. And so that's how we'll directly connect with Mr. Acevedo. And he's just been really a wonderful guy for the rest of the community there. And we'll still reach out to other tenants within there as well. So yeah, we hope for more opportunities down the line to work more with him. Right now, everything's kind of virtual, but he's been great on Zoom through all the many Zoom calls that he has going on, which I'm sure many of you participate in some of those same calls that he's a part of. He'll still take some time to meet with us, text me, reach out to some of my colleagues even to come up with interesting opportunities and ideas and ways to work with our students and faculty, staff, sometimes even our parents as well, our families, which is just a great way to work. So, and obviously the Fulton houses aren't the only ones. There are other groups like that that get similar connection and relationships as well, because we're all neighbors.
All right, I am not seeing any further questions from folks on the board. When I clicked over to the public, I didn't see any raised hands there. So I think all that's left is thank you, Team Avenues. We appreciate you all and realize that this is not the relationship that every community board has with an independent school in its district. So thank you for regularly coming back to our meetings. Thank you for being proactive about partnering with us and other organizations in our community. And I can personally attest to the fact that if you email Morgan, he will reply very quickly and very quickly go after whatever you're suggesting. So he dropped his email into the chat if anybody has anything you want to put on his radar.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being so welcoming.
I think I'm turning it back over to you, Alan.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you again for coming in tonight. So we're going to switch over to arts and culture. And I'm going to ask David Pincus from our arts and culture group to maybe just give us a very brief intro into who's here and why they're here, and then we'll turn it over to our attendees.
Hey, Alan. Hey, everybody. So there's two bills before the city council right now that Amy Todoroff, who is the managing director of the League of Independent Theater, is going to chat about and kind of educate. We're looking to perhaps, get perhaps a letter of support from the committee for this open culture policy that we're going to hear about. She has a member of Jimmy Van Bramer's office, who is the sponsoring the bill. So we're going to get a real kind of a real good look at the inside baseball and politics of getting this bill passed. So I'll leave it to Amy to inform us all. Thank you, Amy.
Hi, David. It's so good to see you again, and Alan and Kit, and hello, Carla from Speaker Johnson's office, and the entire CB4 ACES committee. I really appreciate you giving me some time to speak today about these really important bills. I have had the opportunity to speak at an earlier meeting, so I will take this time to give you an overview of the bills and then turn the discussion over to Jack Bernatovitz, who is the cultural liaison from Jimmy Van Bramer's office. And then, as David said, at that point, we hope to have a lively discussion and earn your support for these bills for open culture. So the bills are numbers 2068 and 2034. Collectively, they're known as the open culture bills that work together to activate public outdoor space for cultural organizations during the COVID-19 crisis. So first, Bill 2068 uses the open streets model, but instead of focusing on restaurants, it would allow cultural organizations to access open streets and other outdoor public spaces through a streamlined one point of contact permitting process. And I can tell you the current system is very convoluted. I recently went to a webinar that was just to list out the different agencies involved in getting a permit. And that webinar was 2.5 hours long with no Q&A. So groups are really in need for a streamlined process there. They apply for permits and never hear back, realize they're in the wrong department, or worse, they're promised permits and never hear back, or the permits never come even though the permits are promised. Bill 2034, the second part of this proposal, organizes the events into a map-style app that New Yorkers can use to find these events in their community. Friends, I cannot tell you how many parents I've heard from who are desperate for ways to find safe outdoor activities for their children that are educational and keep their kids' minds stimulated through this pandemic. So this would be a very powerful tool to keep neighborhoods active. So in previous CB4 meetings, by far the biggest concern shared by the community that I heard was the empty public spaces are contributing to what can be perceived as an unsafe environment. Our streets no longer have the foot traffic that fuels local economies and a sense of neighborhood identity. These bills solve that by getting people into their communities in safe ways. These spaces, when they're activated by small-scale cultural activities, become spaces that discourage loitering and create and encourage a healthy sense of neighborhood ownership. So we understand weather is changing and outdoor activities are not likely to be viable much further into this year, despite what we had outside today. And even with the announcement of progress on a vaccine, we know that we will still be in some state of quarantining through next summer, with a mix of working from home and home learning being the reality for the foreseeable future. So these bills offer alternatives to screen learning through outdoor readings, classes, small-scale performances. The cultural activities are still bound by all safety protocols, including gathering limits, masking, and sound regulations, so no loud amplification. And these activities, unlike dining, don't require you to take your mask off. So to help visualize this, because sometimes I think we just default to the big Broadway scale model. This is not a bill for a 500-person cast belting out Hello Dolly. That's not going to happen. One of our cultural organizations, as an example, is Pm2 Productions. It's in CB4. It offers a 40-minute show for 4 to 10-year-olds that teaches the essentials of storytelling along with self-confidence. This show is presented in English, Spanish, and Chinese. Currently, there's no pathway for this production to be held outdoors. These bills would allow that production to move off the Zoom screen into public spaces where families can safely engage. However, these cultural institutions need to be able to plan for their outdoor events for next season, which is why we need these bills to come before a vote and be passed sooner rather than later. And right now, they are not quite scheduled for a vote yet. So we really do need your support for them. Plus, these cultural organizations are facing the same reality as all the other small businesses, or operating at 25% capacity if and when they're allowed to open just doesn't cut it financially, and they will be forced to close for good without some form of relief. Now, we don't think these bills are going to solve their financial woes, but for them to continue to access the small amount of grants that are often the difference between closing and barely just making it, even at the best of times, these organizations need to keep presenting work and engaging with their community. So these bills let them do that, which keeps them grant eligible, which gives them a fighting chance to stay open. And if the organizations can stay open and engaged, there's some incentive for those residents who might otherwise flee the city to stick around and stay in their neighborhoods. So one of my favorite things about this bill is that we all know, it's no secret, that New York City is going to be facing a pretty serious budget shortfall. These bills offer a creative, community-based solution for some of these biggest challenges that we're going to face in 2021, allowing artists, poets, visual artists, and teachers to activate these public spaces, creates an unofficial city workforce. They become caretakers for these public spaces. Baked into the bill is the obligation that these groups ensure the spaces are clean and well maintained after use. So that is a welcome relief and a partnership for overburdened city agencies. We know outdoor activity is better for the health of New Yorkers during the COVID crisis. We know culture increases the quality of life and it revitalizes economies. I don't feel like I need to go into the larger picture of why culture is important. But we know open streets will work because we've seen restaurants use it this summer. It's just the logical conclusion that cultural events can be successful with this model as well. I think about the paint and wine type lounge that is already in existence in CB4, and I have one right outside my window that offers painting classes. They're currently allowed to operate this class outdoors specifically because they serve food and drinks, even though people are primarily paying for the class. So why not allow an actual painting class to operate the same way through open streets without the burden of serving food and alcohol, and that forces people to take their mask off? We are really grateful that Councilmember Van Bramer and Speaker Cumbo have shown foresight in bringing these outdoor art and culture bills, these open culture bills, to New York's public spaces. We're asking for CB4's support. We need to get these bills to a vote. It is imperative to the continued vitality of the heart of New York City, which I think CB4 really can qualify as one of the heartbeat areas of New York. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Jack, who is one of the key members of Councilmember Van Bramer's team who helped write these bills. And he can add his insight and answer any questions that you have.
Hi, everybody. Jack Bernadovitz here with Councilmember Van Bramer's office. I'm Councilmember Van Bramer's Legislative Director and Cultural Affairs Liaison since before COVID, and since I've been working closely with cultural institutions across the city, and through conversations day to day with those groups and artists, was a need to bring culture to the streets of New York City. The city is a stage. Why don't we have ways to allow these organizations and artists to bring it out to the streets easily? So that's what these bills are pushing for. And Amy did an incredible job explaining the heart and soul of these this package of bills, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the logistics, the nuances, the nitty gritty of it. So I'm happy to open it up to questions and then answer it from there. And we also I shared the bill language in the chat, the links for both. Both are being updated. So I do not have a latest edition. They're still being updated behind the scenes. So I'm happy to say what things the council member or the chairs have committed to updating, but I don't have the latest version available to share.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jack. Before I go to the committee, I have really one kind of question. If you can explain, the bill has been there since August. So in terms of the process of getting these bills through, you've had several hearings from what it looks like on their website. What's holding it back? Is there any pushback from other members on this? What's going behind, a little bit behind the scenes, so to speak, in terms of why the bill, something like this should have popped out in, September or something, or October, should have been signed, on the mayor's desk if that's where it's supposed to wind up. Jack.
I agree with you. We should have had this months ago. But with this, so we originally proposed the idea back in the spring, and it took some time to get a first draft of the legislation ready to share and to introduce. We've had a public hearing on it. So cultural institutions, artists, and supporters of this bill were able to present to the city council and support it. And now we are in kind of the negotiation phase. We are having conversations with the mayor's administration about ways to make this work together to make this the best bill as possible. And we're seeking support from other council members. Right now, we have 16 council members signed on to the bill, and the support of any and all is welcome, and it helps push it forward as well. And then also the support of the speaker as well, and helping move this bill forward too.
Okay, so just what is it going to take to get the bill pushed? Do you need more council members to sign on to it? Do you need, I don't, just trying to get a handle as to, what pushes this forward? Obviously, they're not setting up a separate agency for this, so there's not a real financial problem with it. It's that part of, maybe some, street furniture of some kind to keep things in order, but.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Alan. I'm wondering if we were to write a letter, if the committee decided to support these initiatives, who would the letter be best posed to? Just politically, where do you think it goes? To the mayor, to Corey, to individual council members who are wavering? What's our best strategy for supporting the bills?
Yeah, well, first, a letter from CB4 would be incredible and very helpful for this. And I would say to the mayor and the speaker of the city council, from the speaker's perspective, this is a piece of legislation within the council. He controls the political agenda for the council. So putting that on his forefront and his radar would be helpful. And from the mayor's side, the mayor, similar to open restaurants, could do this without legislation. And legislation could come later to codify it. And so they're the two who could help push this forward from just an idea and into implementation, and something that cultural institutions would be able to greatly benefit from.
All right, cool. All right, let me go to some other members of the committee. Jessica, you had a question?
Yeah, this is great, and I think the open space concept would be really wonderful. I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to focus on the app in particular, and I guess it's the 2034 piece of this, which is like, we just finished our own kind of discussions around budgets. Amy, you alluded to the fact that city budgets are going to be incredibly challenged. And I guess I'm hesitating. I'm feeling like I'm less clear why there needs to be an investment in an app. Like, I mean, I get it conceptually, but is that really the most important thing? Like, I don't know. It just feels like there are a lot of people looking for things to do these days. And I don't know that anybody's going to be downloading a city app to be connected to the most exciting things happening right now. And given this challenge of resources, I just hoping you could expound upon that, and also what kind of feedback you've received from those who have signed on about this, about that piece in particular.
Yeah, so for Introduction 2034, the app website component of this legislation, this is actually introduced by Majority Leader Cumbo. And so I cannot speak on it as much as I could speak about the other aspect of the bill or the other bill, but I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can. So with this, the idea about it or behind it is making all this accessible to New Yorkers, making a way for everybody to just quickly look and see what's going on in their neighborhood. This is something we needed pre-COVID. This is something we need now, and we'll use much further after too. So it's kind of getting it done now so we have it in the future, I think, is one of the long-term ideas behind it. And it will be more than just an app. It will be a website, a mobile. And so before an app is created, you'll be able to go online on your phone or computer and look at it from there. And the city will already have the data through the permitting system. We already have it. Let's just make it transparent and public and available to people. That's the big idea behind it. But that's kind of like phase two of the open culture. Phase one is the permitting system that allows cultural institutions to get out into the streets, use the streets and parks as stages and rehearsal spaces, and bringing culture to the people. So it's a two-part thing. So we have Introduction 2068, which is the permitting system, and 2034, which is the app. And to answer your question about questions from sponsors, there have been concerns about budget, but we are negotiating those within the council and trying to find ways to make this come to fruition and just have both bills work together well too. So happy to answer additional questions about that too.
No, that's helpful. I mean, it definitely has my support for the first half. The second half feels a little more challenging for me just to just justify at this moment. But I also recognize that when you're making policy, you are laying a long road, and like, you know, you're trying to set something up for a future environment. And so I can appreciate the motivation perhaps for doing that. But the realities are also just that this is a tight budget year and people are hungry for this kind of content. And so I appreciate the transparency angle, but the practical implication for me is a bit harder. But I appreciate you answering the question. I think it's great.
Totally understood.
Thank you, Jessica. Blake, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for the explanation of the bills. And, you know, I think this is a very important idea. You know, my one question is, you know, I think for open restaurants, it's really clear what spaces each restaurant is, you know, appropriate for outdoor dining. And, you know, I'm just wondering in this context, how the public spaces are determined and, you know, the usability of those spaces for the start of arts and cultural events are identified. And then, you know, which organizations or how organizations decide who gets which space in this context?
So for open culture, the permitting program of this, it'd be overseen by the Mayor's Office of Citywide Event Coordination and Management, or SAPO, Street Activity Permits Office, and they do this work already. They work with institutions to put on large, small events in public spaces, and we'd have them be coordinating with the Parks Department. So all these public spaces are available for cultural institutions to activate with these programs and to apply for permits with. And so SAPO would be the ones overseeing this process. It is a self-certified application, but all applications will be reviewed. And if there are any major flags, questions, what have you, SAPO and the city will be working with each applicant to refine them and to make sure that they're appropriate for the neighborhood they're in for COVID times, and also just making sure that it's fully feasible as well. There's no conflicts with any other city agencies or anything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, I think prioritizing the kinds of arts and cultural institutions that are within the neighborhood that, you know, they're looking for space is really an important one. So thank you.
Yeah. And to follow up with that, speaking with cultural institutions, the people that want to activate in their neighborhoods or in the city in general are the ones that want to activate their backyards, their own neighborhoods. They're not looking to go do a 5-borough tour right now. They're looking to do a neighborhood tour, hang out in their backyard, work with their constituents and their people, and allow artists in that neighborhood to make some money, do a gig, have a performance, and do something in the street or rehearse as well.
Hey, Jack, has there been a successful implementation of this in any other cities or countries around the world that you're aware of? I mean, is it easily kind of ramped up and accepted by people? Do we know anything about how neighborhoods have, you know, enjoyed this kind of creativity that's brought to them?
Actually, I've not heard of other cities doing something similar to this. We would be the first. And I think New York City is the appropriate home to do this first, because I like to say, the cultural center of the universe. And so bringing culture into the streets of the city, it just makes sense. And it's something that we should have been doing before, and we'll be the first to do it, which is pretty cool.
That's even more exciting.
I believe, yes, we will be the first city to do it exactly like this, but there are models in Ghent in Belgium and Montreal are also excellent models to look at if you're interested in something analogous. But we would be the first to do it in this specific way, which is very exciting.
Thank you, Amy.
Jack, let me see, you mentioned the Parks Department a couple of times. Have you had any contact with them? Have you got any feedback from the Parks Department and their willingness to provide space for you when the time comes?
Yes, so Parks testified during our committee hearing, and with their thought about this, and parks groups as well. These are nonprofits that help coordinate certain parks throughout the city, like Friends of the Highline would be a good example of this. They are supportive of the bill. They want to bring arts and culture into the streets. They're just hesitant about gatherings and making sure that the spaces are controlled fully, because they don't necessarily have the maintenance staff or extra staff or the funds to hire extra people to kind of control crowds and control events like they normally would be able to. But with conversations with parks and cultural institutions, the idea isn't to put on large, massive parties or festivals. These are small engagements, and the cultural institutions would be required to oversee cleanup of the space and maintenance of the space after, to make sure it is the same standard it was at before, and being a steward to the area that they're activating. They're not just there to do something and leave. They're going to use it like they're borrowing this or renting a stage or a theater. They're going to be tending to the space as well.
Well, speaking of groups and gatherings, has there been discussions regarding numbers in terms of the COVID and the expected winter coming along, that sort of thing in the council and in the hearings?
So this legislation would fall under any and all executive orders from the governor and the mayor regarding to COVID. So any gathering restrictions, these would have to follow that. So we want to make sure that this is appropriate to COVID-19 and public health standards that we have right now. But we want to just create opportunities for cultural institutions to have this space available to them through this bill. But we just wanted, everybody is going to be additionally cautious of everything and provide safety plans as part of their application as well.
Yeah, cool. Super. Amy, any last words?
Alan, actually, can I make a point or ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Amy and Jack, thank you very much for coming tonight. I just want to say to the group, I think it actually is it behooves this legislation and the goal of this legislation that it is run through SAPO. I think it's a really actually a smart move, and SAPO has got a, this is what SAPO does. It's their expertise in this, and on all honesty, they're also very good at enforcing. And so if someone is not following the rules, as we have seen in previous street events prior to COVID, all the street events you guys approve of and review, they get shut down, right? And so I think it being in SAPO is a smart move, because it does coordinate, it has an experience with coordinating with all of the necessary agencies and making sure they do it. Jack, in your understanding, and I apologize, I might have not read it all the way through, in terms of it going to SAPO though, we typically have the ability to at least comment on applications that go through SAPO, any and all of them. We usually choose probably 90% of them we don't, because they are, they're film productions or they're event productions, and they're very small. But with block fairs and street fairs and things like that, which are common, community boards do comment on, or review or send in a letter of recommendation or have a couple stipulations. Would you guys foresee that being a similar type of process for these events?
So with this program with open culture, it would technically, within like looking at the city charter and kind of the nitty gritty of it, it would be a different permitting program than traditional SAPO public programs. And this one does not have a community board requirement as part of it. And there was discussions behind this, and the idea behind not requiring the community board oversight was similar with the open restaurants program. There's not necessarily there's not a requirement for the community boards to oversee all the open restaurants applicants, and making sure, or who is applying for additional outdoor space, because there's a need for this. There's a need for restaurants to be able to take advantage of the space in front of their business, and to be able to serve people and stay in business. And we saw it similar to cultural institutions. There's a need for them to go out of the traditional spaces that they can't perform in right now, the theaters, the stages, the dance studios, like they cannot use these spaces right now. And we want to make sure that the city could be open to them in some capacity and turning it into a stage or a rehearsal space. So that was the thought behind that part of the bill and the legislation. But happy to have conversations with you further on this if there are greater concerns, and then see what we could do from here.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't think there's any red flags yet. I just wanted to understand that process because our relationship with Sapo is, we have one and we routinely review. Back when we had street fairs, we would continually review those street fairs. David Pincus knows from his days on the Q of L committee. And then I guess the only other thing I'd want to flag for the committee is obviously that transportation committee has done a lot of work on making recommendations on the other open street programs, whether it be open restaurants and things like that. And I just want to make sure whatever you guys think about this program and this initiative, that we take the time to coordinate whatever, if there's specific things, I think if another committee in our board has said about either side streets or sidewalk use or things along those natures, we just want to make sure that it coincides with that.
Cool. I don't see any questions from the committee or from attendees. I don't know if Amy, if you want to say a couple last few words, and then I think I heard a rattling of a letter coming on.
Well, first of all, I say thank you for giving us the time this evening. It is so appreciative. From our advocacy efforts, I can share that there are quite a few council members who have enthusiasm for this bill. They're just waiting for the final draft of the bill before they sign on. So we're anticipating that the number of co-sponsors will go up. But we can't say for sure yet, of course, and that might be more in Jack's knowledge base there. But the one thing that comes up again and again is that support from the community is what's going to get this bill over the line, and that's you all. You all have the power to do that. So a letter from you would go a really long way towards doing a lot of good in this area. So thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Okay. So in that sense, I'm going to ask if somebody wants to make a motion for a letter and perhaps some items that you think you might want to include in that letter so we can have a general idea. And who would like to do that?
Well, I'll make a motion to support the two initiatives, at least to the extent of having them come to a vote and a debate at the city council level. I mean, I know there are issues about budget we don't know about. I don't know if we have to completely, throw all our support without knowing more about budgetary issues, which I think is a very reasonable point of view. But I think a letter of support to get this debated in front of the council, the idea that it's the first of its kind in the country is exciting. I think that that using the testimony of both Jack and Amy, if we could distill some of just the talking points that we heard, I think that would form a great basis of the letter. We could have an additional discussion perhaps amongst ourselves about community board involvement on Sapo's permitting. But I, for one, am kind of persuaded by the fact that these are theaters that are unable to perform, unable to do business, and they need access, that is going to be, there's going to be, there's going to be codes and regulations, but they need to perform and they need to get their work out there. So I'm for that, but I would base our motion to write a letter on what we heard tonight from Amy and Jack.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passes. David, I did see your notation regarding transportation. I think that might be something separate for transportation to take up once this goes forward and there is a bill in there in terms of how they want to manage the whole street thing. So that might be something that it goes before transportation at that point.
Okay.
All righty. Okay, so that's unanimous. Super. David, I'm sure you'll do the first draft.
Yeah, I'll put a draft together. I'll work with Sarah and with Amy.
Yes,
Perhaps
Sarah,
Jack, we can get some facts and figures we can throw into it. But I look forward to getting something in a week or two to you guys for approval.
Okay.
Alan, for the sake of the record, can we just get everybody to actually raise their hand or vote?
Okay. Okay. All in favor, raise your hand, please. Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Anybody?
Present not eligible.
Eligible. We're all in. Okay, we're good. Okay, thank you again.
Thank
Jack,
you, guys.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Good luck. Good luck. Keep pushing. So we're going to stay on the streets, and unfortunately, it's not about beautifying the street in terms of adding culture and arts. It's about trying to get some of the clutter off the street. So I'm going to ask Blake to make just a brief intro, give us an update a little bit, and then we're going to hear from Colleen from DOT. Please, Blake.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Colleen, for attending. I know it's always dicey to be agenda item number 4 on a community board meeting. The presentation is about news racks, and this is an issue that we've discussed at ACES as well as Street Life before. There's a constitutional protection, and news racks serve an important role in the neighborhood by allowing people to get periodicals, many times of local interest. But often, what we see on the streets is that news racks are unutilized and unkept, and that can cause some sanitation issues, as well as just taking up space on the sidewalks that, particularly now with outdoor dining and social distancing, really has never been even more valuable. So, we had a couple of discussions, one with Colleen and her team at the Department of Transportation initially when we were trying to learn about this issue. We also spoke with the 34th Street Partnership about some of their work on standardizing news racks, and with John Mudd from Midtown South on his prior research on it. And one of the outcomes was that, we just needed to look around the neighborhood to report some of the issues, to get a better sense of what the issues are, since there are regulations that the Department of Transportation has for these news racks, but to see the level of compliance and the level of remediation that the publishers are taking. So we do have some slides in the Dropbox. I don't know if we wanted to go over or if we're able to see some of these, Jesse.
Yeah, Blake, you want me to bring those up?
That'd be great. I don't think we need to belabor these issues so much, but in general, we walked around the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, particularly around where I live, around 57th Street. And this is an area where there's no bid in order to help maintain the news racks or to provide a standard news rack design. So I just wanted to get a sample of some of the news rack issues. On this slide, we see, if we can go to that slide with the 7 news rack reports, summaries, so I just got a sense of some of the news rack issues, documented the 311 report numbers here. And, most of the issues had to do with no contact info, just because one of the regulations is for a news rack to have phone and email information of the publisher that has put that news rack up there. So, several of them did not fall into that category. Then, I looked at these news racks in September when I submitted the initial 311 reports, and then followed up in October and November to see the status of whether or not these issues have been remediated. And, to the credit of DOT, all of these tickets were addressed in the 311 system, and they all had a response. But unfortunately, many of the issues did, 5 out of the 7 issues persisted into November, even after the publisher received a notification from DOT. So, maybe we can just click through the following slides, just, see some of the issues. This one didn't have contact information. It was too close to the, or closer than the regulations required at a curb cut. Next slide. This one was initially chained to the sign, which is against regulation, and this one actually was remediated. The next one if you can, this one also didn't have contact information, and you know, so this one persisted. If we go to the next one, which also did not have contact information. Number 5 was actually remediated. Previously didn't have any contact information. Yeah, we can just click quickly through 5, 6, and 7. 7 was a little different because it was just continuously too close to that fire hydrant. And then the next one was just a new one where, you know, obviously that's problematic, tipped over and not maintained. We can go to the next one. This one was just inaccessible, you know, so it seems, which isn't, you know, part of the regulations, but wasn't really serving much of a purpose behind the scaffolding. And so on the last slide, if we can click to next steps, you know, so the areas that I was hoping to discuss tonight were just, you know, some of the steps that community members can take to address the problem. You know, I know 311 reports are important, but if some of the news racks continue to be out of compliance, you know, what other steps can be taken? Secondly, you know, I came up with some ideas on recommendations to improve the regulations. You know, specifically, right now it's really hard for individuals or community members to report unutilized news racks. You know, so I think there might be a improvement where there's a specific number of days in which the news rack has to be refilled. You know, even if we say something like, you know, the news rack has to be refilled every 2 weeks, you know, that sets a parameter around the utilization requirement for news racks. Secondly, you know, as I mentioned, news rack under scaffolding is within a very limited space on the sidewalk. And, you know, I think in that context, it particularly tends to attract more litter. Third, you know, we saw the picture of the news rack by the Link NYC terminal. And, you know, I think news racks tend to be tipped over to become seating, particularly in that sort of situation. And fourth, you know, perhaps a weight requirement on the news rack would prevent them from being moved or tipped. And then as far as the information around news racks, you know, I'm not sure that it's currently publicly available when publishers are refilling news racks. You know, I think the DOT might have a schedule for when the publishers say that they're refilling news racks, but I'm not sure that that's publicly available. I'm not sure it's also publicly available to see the news rack registration forms. So, you know, I don't think community members can verify if a news rack that they see is in fact registered. Third, you know, I think there is information about the timeline for when DOT checks on 311 reports about news racks. You know, I think maybe that could be a little more publicly available on the 311 website. And as far as I could tell, the 311 app doesn't allow news rack submissions within the correct category there. So I think, you know, probably since it's something that people probably are coming across while on the go, you know, I think that could be an improvement for the Department of IT. And, you know, we had initially spoken a little bit about a coordinated street furniture project, and I think, you know, that could also help to standardize how the news racks look on the streets as well. So, you know, I was hoping for, you know, any feedback from Colleen as well as from the committee members, you know, on potential improvements or things that you've observed in the neighborhood regarding news racks. And, you know, hopefully we can turn it into a letter with some recommendations for improvements on the DOT regulations and the availability of information about these news racks.
Hi, Blake. It's hi, Blake. Hi, committee members. Thank you so much for having me on this evening. It's Colleen Chattergoon from City Department of Transportation. So the last time we spoke with each other, it was in May. And from what I can tell you is that nothing really much has changed, other than the fact that I know that there is a draft legislation that's been with the Corp Council for over a year. And this legislation, it develops time, place, manner for allowing single racks on the streets. It also talks about those racks that are designed by a bid and what happens when such racks are installed relating to the single rack. It does not include DOT installing standard news racks, but rather permitting others to do so. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And from what I know, my colleagues in intergovernmental relations have been working with City Hall on the legislation. And, you know, we do get complaints about the deteriorating conditions about news racks, you know, in CB4 as well as in other community boards as well. And what we have done, we have encouraged, you know, constituents to please call 311 because that's the best way to make and track all complaints that are made. And our IT department are the ones who are able to retrieve that information. Maybe there is something that we can work closely with 311 in terms of language, because I know keywords are very important with 311. And maybe that's something that we can take a look at and see what we can do so that when constituents call to complain about, you know, the condition of the news rack, particular news rack, it does not take that long to get to the site to determine what the issues are, whether it's a news rack that does not have contact information or that's not being used or that's no longer, the publication is no longer in existence. And I always encourage folks to, you know, email me or email Jesse at the CB office and let me know and we'll have an inspection done. Okay.
Okay. I see Wendy has a question for you, Colleen, or a comment.
Sure.
Hi, Colleen. Hi, Blake. So it's actually just more of a general comment. In general, Blake, I agree with all of the recommendations you have there. I think the other one that I would add is that given that so often we see an issue with the overturned news racks in proximity to the link NYC, and I know you have a recommendation for them being farther apart, but I think we could also use link NYC potentially as a way to get the word out that when there is a better way to report these, that they should be read. If people see them overturned or unattended, whatever, et cetera. And then I also see Judith's comment around having just labeling on the news racks around, like, if it's not maintained, call this number, call 311, which I also think is a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And, you know, Blake, we welcome any suggestions that you have that you will submit to us in a resolution to consider it that we can share with City Hall. That would be most welcome.
Thank you. You know, I think that would be a good idea from my perspective anyway. You know, if we're going to provide recommendations, you know, if nothing else, just flag that it's an issue of community concern. And, you know, I appreciate the feedback as well, Wendy.
Cool. Any other comments, any questions? So I think we should try to put this into some sort of a letter. Like, you've got a lot of great suggestions there. I think, have we ever done anything in terms of any sort of a statement or anything with to DOT about this? Would this be our first one?
Looks like maybe David Warren has a question before we get to letter or no letter.
David, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, this might be a little out of order, but what is the procedure for these news racks if there's like high winds, like a hurricane or something like that? Who's responsible for, or a parade for security reasons? You know, you don't want people leaving bombs in them and stuff like that. What is the procedure? How does that work with these news racks? More especially what's be related to storms or weather conditions. Who handles that? What do they do with them?
So the publication, that's a really good question. So the publications are the ones that are responsible for the maintenance of their news rack. They would have to decide whether to put them out or, you know, remove them if there's a, you know, like you said, that there's a storm. But in some cases, some of these news racks are either bolted or, you know, we saw the one which is chained to a drive rail, which really shouldn't be chained to a drive rail. That's illegal. So it's the publications that would be responsible for the maintenance and removal and putting them back.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome, David. Nice seeing you.
Oh, great seeing you. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. And just to give you a heads up, I mean, I know one thing that came up is, you know, the violations that are brought to our attention. So the Department of Transportation has 60 days, just so you know, to respond to news rack complaints. When complaints are received, they're inspected, and if a news rack is not in compliance, a notice of correction is mailed to the publisher, allowing them 7 days to correct the condition. Then DOT will go out there, they will re-inspect between the 16th and the 28th day. And if the issue has not been corrected, a summons will be issued. Now, an oath hearing will be held in approximately 120 days. And if a new complaint comes in before a summons is issued, it's considered as a duplicate unless the infraction is different, just so you know. So there is a process involved with inspection and re-inspection.
And Colleen, are the re-inspections automatic?
The re-inspection, we would go back out there. Yes, it's automatic.
Okay.
Colleen, is there ever a situation where the city will go in and remove these boxes off the street for any reason?
If they're no longer in existence, if the publication is, if the publisher is not publishing, we would remove them. We would have to confirm that and we would remove them. Yeah.
Does someone from DOT check on these, or is that up to the public to?
You know, again, it's complaint driven. If we get a complaint, we will go out there, we will check, inspect, we will confirm if the publication is still in existence or not. And if not, we'll remove them. I would want to say it's, we do go out and we inspect, but most of the complaints that come in are from citizens who, you know, notice something out of the ordinary. We rely on constituents to call us in and let us know if there's something going on.
All right, super. Thank you. Thank you, Colleen.
Sure.
Blake, anything you want to add to this?
No, I appreciate that feedback, and I would be interested in a letter, and you know, I'm happy to draft that, you know, based on the feedback here and the other items that I had observed.
Yeah, but I think you've done some heroic work on this. I think we can just take whatever the your presentation was, put it on our letterhead and just send it right out. But I'm sure you want to do a letter.
You need a motion for a letter.
Need a motion
and a second.
Need a motion and a second. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to write a letter.
Motion. Thank you. Anybody want to second it?
Second.
Very good.
It's Colleen. I have to say, this is one of my easiest community board meetings ever.
Oh, we'll have to do better next time.
Yeah. Wait till you see the letter, Colleen.
Just so you know, Jesse can vouch for me on that one.
Yeah. Colleen, you do heroic work also on all of this. Trust me.
Oh, good.
Except I'm still waiting for a sign on 22nd and 10th, but that's another story.
I know. You know what? It's being looked at. Don't worry. We're looking at it.
Okay. Did we vote on this? Anybody?
No, we need a vote.
Okay. A vote to write the letter. Raise your hands, please. Very good. David Pincus. Okay. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Present but uneligible. Motion passes. And Blake, need any help, reach out. We'll get a good letter going on this. Thank you very much, folks. So at this point, I'm going to turn this back over to Kid, who's a little busy. You know, he's got his hands full. I'm going to turn this back over to Kid for our last presentation.
Bedtime, and I'm turning it very quickly over to Josephine. Just want to flag on the front end that I have a question and some input from Maria, who wasn't able to be here tonight. but Josephine is going to take the point on this last agenda item.
Do we have Iris Gersten here?
We do. She's coming online right now.
Wonderful. So Iris Gersten is our district manager for students in temporary housing, and she does great work in helping all of students in District 2 and in District 3, actually, which is a very huge job, just maintaining all of their needs, especially now that so much of 2/3 of the learning has gone remote, and many of our students in temporary housing are actually choosing to be 100% remote because of just the great concern with COVID and lack of healthcare, et cetera. So, you know, we've been having some issues with the spotty internet connection, and, you know, this is not good because these kids really need to be online and attending these classes. So I'm going to give it to Iris. Oh, you're on mute, Iris.
Can you invite Sharon Dillon? Oh, you're there. Hi.
She's here.
Okay. What would you like me to address?
Well, if you could first address, well, two things. What's happening with the internet overall in the shelters, you know, and how could we possibly be of help? And also with the broken devices, are they being replaced, and what's really happening with that?
Okay. I'm going to take half the question. I'm going to give the other half to Sharon. In terms of the connectivity in District 2, most of the shelters are in hotels, and they're very high above ground, and there are towers nearby. So I'm not hearing about significant connectivity issues in those particular shelters. Insofar as the devices, Sharon, do you want to address this? Because I'll say something.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm Sharon Dillon. I'm one of the directors of regional support for students in temporary housing. So I work with Iris as well. So in terms of connectivity, like Iris said, most of the shelters are able to access their T-Mobile cellular signals. So it's like a two-pronged thing. Wi-Fi is generally not available in the majority of DHS shelters. So Wi-Fi access is something, if you the mayor recently announced that they're trying to address in shelters, and that's a larger city DHS conversation that's happening right now that I don't realistically think would address immediate needs, but they are exploring various options. Our students, generally what we've advised is for them to have cellular enabled devices. So through the spring, and even now, we're trying to prioritize students in shelters for cellular enabled iPads. And then that's the connectivity issue that Iris is referencing. Most of those hotels and shelters within District 2 and 3 are able to connect. And if they're not, we do have a setup with T-Mobile to come out and assess if there's any issues that they could then sort of boost signals in the odd parts of a building that potentially are not getting a signal.
I am having that problem in District 3 in the older buildings, but not in District 2. When there is a problem, if T-Mobile cannot fix it, we have now switched over to Verizon. So I can tell you in many, many shelters, there's an issue, but not in the hotels. Go ahead, Sharon.
And then in terms of broken devices, it's a work in progress. We have ordered, or DIIT is who we work through. And so if a broken device needs to be fixed, then we are advising students to go through DIIT. We do meet with them weekly to sort of escalate larger themes. And just recently, we have sort of set up like a more dedicated STH person within DIIT. So if a student or family calls, what we're telling our students in shelters is to say that they are in a shelter or that they are STH, and that they would then be redirected to a dedicated person who can prioritize those students around those needs. So that has sort of been set up in the last week or so. If they're looking for replacement devices, we have ordered, DIIT has ordered about 100,000 new devices. Those are all coming through school-based orders, so we don't centrally manage iPad requests. They go through the school, but we do track them and escalate them and try to advocate to make sure that students in shelters are being prioritized. since they generally need a cellular enabled device. And in those cases, the unfortunate thing is there's a backlog in getting devices. So we're anticipating an 8 to 10 week delay, which I think at this point we're through some of that. And I think the orders would be coming in through mid-December. And so that is sort of the piece around replacing broken devices. I think that's both of those points.
Okay, thank you for the that information. Do you actually have data on students in temporary housing and how often they're logging in? That's the first question, because I'm still getting calls. Like there are 2 shelters in CB4 that still have spotty internet. And sometimes the families have to go down, or the students will go down near the office. You know, it's like in any apartment building, right? Certain areas will have better connectivity than others. So they may not have connectivity in their room, but if they go down where the office is, then they have connectivity there. But of course, they can't do that all the time. So I'm wondering, is the DOE collecting data on how much students are actually logging in from these shelters? And then the second question is that do you have data on how many students in shelters are currently without a device, without a working device, an internet-enabled device?
Yeah, we collect data on both. So we have attendance data that we review in terms of students in shelters. I think when it comes to that piece around when they're reporting that there's still connectivity issues, that's where Iris has had T-Mobile come out. And ideally, that's when they're trying to address the majority of those. If you're still getting those, I would redirect those to Iris to see if there, for some reason, there was a section of a hotel or something that was missed, because we do ask for them to specify, like, the back of the 3rd floor is where we're not being able to connect, so that, to your point, T-Mobile could then go and see if they just need to boost a signal or if that's some other larger issue. I think Iris wouldn't be able to speak directly to the hotels that she knows of, and if something's been flagged as a larger problem that they can't just fix through a signal boost. In terms of—
Wait, 1 minute, Sharon. What are the hotels? Which facilities?
Well, it's a public call, but I can, I could text you them later. I just don't like to give out the names of the shelters, right?
Please do. Thanks.
Definitely. If anybody's ever hearing of sort of a connectivity issue that they think is related more so to just a cellular signal. So per your example, where a student is saying that, like, my iPad works if I go down to another area, please flag those for Iris so that we can continue to follow up. And then T-Mobile and DIIT usually goes to the building to assess what's happening. And if the more specific we are in the area, the more targeted sort of their work can be in that sense. To your second question around data, we do have data on the students that are still waiting for devices. So we do have— DIIT just recently shared a file on all of the remote learning device requests. So we do get the data reports from the RLD reports to see sort of where we are at in terms of requests, which have been fulfilled, which are still waiting. And we are disaggregating that at this point so that we can also share with schools, particularly around those that we know will be waiting for at least another month, that this student would be waiting for another month, and how can we support them in thinking through other ways of engaging in their learning through paper packets or other asynchronous ways of having their school materials shared with them.
Okay, so you're saying that students can actually be without a device for another month?
Yeah.
That's a long time. Okay. I'm just thinking in terms of, any letter that we may write from Community Board 4. So 2 questions. How long does it take to have a T-Mobile person go to a shelter and address the issue? That's the first question. And then the second question is, could we as a board get access to the data, and then that will help us decide whether or not this is, we need to pursue this with a letter?
Yeah, at this point, I'm not 100% positive on the turnaround time for T-Mobile. They're making their way through the list. So I think it takes about a week or so. Iris, I'm not sure if you have a recent experience.
10 days. T-Mobile has been going out and individually working with families now. DIIT has been sending out people to specific shelters to work with families. Shelter directors have instructed families, if you need to be out of the building, please leave your iPad so we can look at it when there's concern. Every shelter has a list of every iPad with every issue that goes back to DHS. So we've identified where the issues are, and we've tried very hard to work on those issues. We also need a compliant parent to work with us on those issues. Okay, good, Sharon, I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. Because yeah, so Iris is generally the one who's in the thick of it, communicating regularly between the shelters and DI with T-Mobile and on our end as well. So she's able to answer sort of the more immediate questions. The second one was in regards to, sorry, can you repeat the second part of the question?
The data on broken devices and, you know, how, you know, families are actually logging on.
Yeah, I can definitely get that to you. We're trying to disaggregate the RL, the most recent one around how many students are still waiting. The file is a little massive, and we're trying to do some data matching between what we get from DHS in terms of the student IDs on their end, and then our RLD DOE report. So I'm hoping to be able to share that out with regional managers by the end of this week in regards to who is still waiting for a device and how we might be able to advocate for alternative ways of engaging with them. So some of the things that we have potentially suggested is if schools have the ability and parents are interested, which is its own piece, around trying to go into school more regularly to be able to engage in learning is a possible option. Some schools are exploring buying hotspots so that they can use non-cellular enabled devices. So schools that have other Chromebooks or computers, and then purchasing hotspots with some of their funding. So we're trying to sort of identify alternatives, because another month of not being able to log in is not an option in terms of having students be able to engage with school.
Another issue that I find is the lack of privacy and the difficulty concentrating when you're in a room and you've got several people in the room. Every school has Title I funds, and if they don't have Title I funds, they have funds put away like Title I funds. And I am going to be speaking with every school, making suggestions on how they can spend that money, whether they choose to order headphones for kids, which I think is really needed. If they want to order hotspots, although I'm telling you, in the hotels, I don't see a problem, but if you say there is, I'm not going to argue the point. And other kinds of supplies to enable kids to be able to learn better. So that's my project for right now.
And
Right.
this
The
year-
Title I funds, I think, is like $100 per kid, right?
Right, but there was money from last year that was not spent, so there's double the money.
Yeah,
And-
every school got an STH rollover for Title I funds. And then if they want, they can access like their high needs Title I funds and other ones as well. So while there is a Title I STH set aside, which would be duplicated double this year because of last year's rollover, they can also access sort of their Title I high needs funding as well for these sort of purchases.
We're being much more creative with Title I funds for the needs of kids than we've been in the past.
Got it. Okay, so if Sharon could forward that information on the data to Jesse, that would be very helpful to us, and understanding where to go from here and how we could best support these students.
Yeah, I will get you sort of the data on the students that are still waiting for a device. And I can also share attendance data, though the attendance data doesn't just reflect inability to log in. There's any number of factors sort of related to the attendance piece.
Right, because even before we went remote, that, you know, the attendance was always an issue. So I understand that. Also, you know, I think it's, you know, I've had parents who have wanted to, you know, this idea about the hotspots and, you know, buying something like that. But the schools that the kids tend to attend on the west side, they're, you know, as Ira said, they're Title I schools. So there may be some STH funding left over, but the PTAs raise very little money. So there's no, it's not like there's a lot of money there for parents to be able to, you know, PTA to kick in to add to those funds, you know, to buy a hotspot or something like that. So just to keep that in mind.
Definitely.
We have at least one other person on the committee who has a question. Josephine, were there other things you wanted to ask?
No,
or
that's
okay?
it. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, both of you.
Okay.
Now seeing two hands raised. So the question that I got in advance from Maria, who wasn't able to join us, I think we'll have to hold on. She sort of wanted us to quantify how many students, how many families have connectivity issues, have device issues. Sounds like we're going to hopefully get that data, but I just wanted to share that was her question. So we're going to go to Jessica first, and then Wendy after that. Jessica, all you.
Thank you. And obviously this is like, I work at a nonprofit. I can appreciate how hard it is to take government dollars and make things happen in the midst of a crisis and a changing environment. But I'm also struck by if there are resources, like what is the hurdle that's like, what are the top 2 hurdles right now that are keeping every student from having uninterrupted access to their academic curriculum? Like I feel like I'm not quite hearing like, obviously there's no silver bullet, but like, what is the solution that what is the hurdle we need to try to overcome here?
You want me to take that or you want to take that?
You can take it, Iris.
Something I experience is in District 2 in the hotels, if you've not been in one of these shelters, it's one room with 4 people in a hotel room. So imagine being in a hotel room that you've stayed in, a Marriott, a Hilton, 2 beds, a TV and a bathroom. All the meals come in, so they don't have any kitchen to speak of. So you've got these kids online and they're doing it simultaneously, and it's very hard to hear and it's very hard to concentrate. Concomitant with that, you've got a parent that wants to get out of the shelter and is very motivated to work. And what does she do with her kids? One of the problems that I'm having right now, this is changeover week to go from remote learning to blended learning, and we're recruiting families to do that. But in District 2, with the exception of downtown and the Hudson Guild, there's no Learning Bridge program. So I find that I don't think that there are enough resources and space for the kids to learn in a healthy manner. That's my 2 cents.
So it's not devices specifically.
We've worked very hard on devices individually, family by family. We've sat with them. We've spoken with the SPOC at school. We've called people. We've given new devices. Then there's the motivation of logging on. And people are very depressed. This is a second year and they're very upset by it. And you've got all these kids in a room and I'm trying to attend to the needs of those kids. And some kids are special ed and they're not getting services. And some kids act out. And then you've got the high school kids. If a parent goes to work, a high school kid has to leave the shelter. And you would hope that the child would go to school, but that's only 2 days a week or 1 week on, 1 week off, depending on how they decide to attend school. The families get phone calls from the teacher, the guidance counselor, the social worker, the family assistant, me, and the attendance person. After a while, they turn off their phones. When someone isn't attending school, it's not just, I didn't want to go to school today. There's something else going on with the family. But the first thing you need is the access to the family to find out what that is, and then what you can do to ameliorate that if they're motivated. So family by family, that's what my team is doing right now.
Thank you for that. And thank you for that hard work. I commend you.
I think one of the things that, as Iris was saying, it's the person-to-person contact, and we lost that, right? When we went remote, basically with 2/3 remote, so that if your kid is only in school 2 days a week, you're pretty much remote. And now the DOE is, there was supposed to be different times during the year where kids could opt back in if they had decided to do 100% remote, but now the cutoff has been moved to November 30th, I believe it is. So after that point, no child will be able to opt in even for the 2 days a week. So that's really going to be a problem because, as I say, a lot of families that I've spoken to, they've been hit hard by COVID. So they've been keeping their kids, in the shelter. They haven't even been sending them for the 2 days. They've been opting for the 100% remote. which is a really hard because these kids really need to have some in-person time. And so, you know, perhaps if the chancellor would at least make exceptions for these families and give them, you know, maybe until the spring to decide, you know, hopefully there will be a vaccine, and then these families will feel a little more confident about sending their kids to school, because right now they're not. And if they close the window at November 30th and say, if your kids don't opt back in by now, that's it for the rest of the year, that is really going to have an enormous impact on these kids that are living in these shelters, because then they have no option for them, right? They're just stuck in the shelters for the rest of the year. So that is something that could potentially help if the DOE is at least open to doing that, but I don't know if they will be.
We have one more question from a committee member. Wendy, you're up.
Thanks. Super logistical question, but in thinking about the devices that are right now only cellular enabled, has there been any feedback or has there been testing on whether students are actually able to like just stream their classes, to connect to whatever portals they're connecting to through their schools as successfully as students who are with Wi-Fi? Just thinking through the realities often of connecting via data only, and how that can be its own challenge. So just wondering if you guys have any feedback or data on that.
I have not heard of too many challenges. I think the larger thing is if there's a like overall cellular connection problem, then we'll get that feedback. Sorry. In that sense, but not in the sense of like delays or too many issues of just connecting to a class and having streaming or connection problems in that sense.
Got it. So basically, if you have a cellular enabled device, so far it's been working.
Yeah, if your general signal is working, then you're able to engage for the most part. I think there'll still be the one-offs, like any of us have just issues, but there has not been any larger sort of issue flagged in that sense.
Okay, great. Thank you.
To elaborate on that piece a little bit, Wendy, a lot of the software is designed to be workable on like a phone. And so if it can work on, you know, a parent's cell phone, smartphone, it can also generally work on a laptop or a desktop that is only operating off of a cell signal. Not true across the board, and some softwares are more demanding than others, but that's been my experience. Any other questions for our friends from the DOE before we shift to committee discussion?
I have a request. As a community board, if you want my opinion on something, if you could push to have a Learning Bridges program open up in the 30s or the 40s or the 50s, that would be wonderful, because we have nothing servicing the hotels now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, sounds like we have the beginning of the content for a letter. Is there anyone who wants to make a motion, or any other questions, comments, knock jokes that people want to get out into the universe?
I make a motion to do the letter about the Learning Bridges Center.
Thank you.
Second.
Second that.
All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Present, one abstention.
I'm here for the whole thing, so I don't want to.
Makes sense. Present, not eligible?
Judith is, I acknowledge Judith there, yeah.
Jesse, I got to switch to present, not eligible now that I think about it.
Good point.
Okay, awesome. So I think it sounds like Josephine, you are down to be point on writing that letter. Am I getting that right?
Yes, of course. And I can reach out to Iris for more details.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be really terrific to get that data and be able to quantify the problem in the letter whenever y'all are able to share that with Jesse. I think that is everything on that agenda item. And so we are moving on to Is there any old or new business? If there is no new business, we may be in a position to say at 8:26 p.m. that it's time to adjourn. Alan, anything on your end?
Terrific meeting, guys. Terrific meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Motion to end the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Good night, everybody.
Sign off if you agree.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Looking forward to reading these letters.